Thanks for joining us this evening. On the stage with me tonight are two other certified financial planners on our team, Nancy Williams and Raj Chatterjee. Carver Financial Services was founded 30 years ago by Randy Carver. And over the years, you may have noticed a few changes to our building. The old branch is no longer there, and this latest addition just a couple of years ago. But we work with some clients that remember meeting with them in the upstairs office of a building on Menor Avenue still. Over the years, the vision's kind of remained the same though, to make people's lives better. So tonight, our Carver Cares partner is a local nonprofit called the Carter Medley Foundation. In the back of the room is Jason, who's representing the foundation. And we've provided information on your table about the Carver Cares program and also on the foundation. I hope you take the time to meet them and learn a little bit more about what they're trying to do. Our team takes a lot of pride in putting our clients' needs first, but we also take a lot of pride in being well-educated and one of the most recognized teams in Raymond James. Raymond James is the custodian of our clients' accounts, which means they provide the statements that you get in the mail, your online access. They provide the insurance, the compliance oversight. And they also have back office resources that we use, like the trust department or the lending department. Has anyone here ever heard of the term YOLO? Anybody? Acronym? What does YOLO mean? You only live once. We're going to put a little different spin on it tonight and say YORO, you only retire once. Okay? So our goal today is talk about the things that you're going to face as you lead up to retirement, transition into, and then live during retirement. On your table, we have an additional handout from the MIT Age Lab that provides additional questions, resources, things to think about after this presentation. It'll also have a couple of the slides in our presentation if it's kind of hard to see them. And on the back page is a note-taking section. So if you feel free to jot something down. And along the way, if you have questions, please raise your hand. But our team will be here after the event. If you have anything specific you'd like to discuss, and of course, you're always welcome to call the office and speak to one of the advisors. So where does your journey begin? If you could take a moment and either write it down or just get a picture in your mind of what does retirement look like to you? Some of you in the room may have given this a lot of thought. Others may have just thought about it for the first time. So if I can ask Chuck, what does a typical day in retirement look like to you?
Well, I'm not there yet. But in 5 months and 25 days, I will.
Yes.
Not that I'm counting.
Yeah.
But I think it's just going to be the freedom to do what I want to do. I want to do volunteer work. I've been doing it all my life. I'll continue. It will just give me more flexibility to do that. And maybe do some travel too.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. So Sandy, what brings meaning and purpose to your life? What do you see yourself doing in retirement that?
Well, I have a few months to embark on that, but spending time with my grandkids is what I really look forward to, and volunteering for something that is fulfilling to me. You know,
Yeah.
aside from the half-truth days.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah. You don't have to have every day planned, right? But if you don't kind of know what you're going to spend your time on, could be a little rough entry as you transition to retirement. So this is saying, if you have a dream and you write it down and put a date on it, that becomes a goal. And if you break that goal down into steps, it becomes a plan. And if you put that plan and back it with action, that becomes your reality. And that's what we're talking about today. So it starts with your vision for the future. What's most important to you? That's where our process starts. Then we help put the plan together, and we're with you every step of the way to make sure we're making your reality. True. So, how much money do I need to fulfill my personal vision? If we've identified where we're going and when we want to get there, the date, is how much is it going to take to actually maintain my lifestyle and travel, spend time with grandkids, right? Start a business, some people do. We met with a couple weeks ago, and they have a few years till retirement. And one of the spouses wants to travel the world. The other spouse would like to babysit the grandkids 5 days a week. It's good that we're having this discussion about 3 years out because we have time to kind of reconcile those two visions. And my guess, knowing the couple, is they'll get to a spot where they're probably doing both. But what I'm pointing out is traveling globally is a lot different than spending 5 days a week with your grandkids, assuming you're not running them around to sports the entire time. You don't spend a lot of money on gas. Another couple that we met with just this last year that transitioned into retirement had the vision last year of traveling around in their RV. And they also have a sailboat, so they want to sail around. But with everything going on last year, one of them bought a sewing machine. Okay? And in order to take that sewing machine with them, she designed a portable collapsible table. And she put that design on a website called Etsy. You ever heard of it? Pretty popular these days. And all of a sudden, she has a brand new blossoming business that's now generating additional income that they never anticipated having. And now it's going to be able to afford them some additional luxuries. So what we see day in and day out through our conversations is there's not this one-size-fits-all retirement. You don't have to retire at a certain age. And certainly what you do with your time and how much money you spend is different for each and every one of you. So tonight, again, we're just going to highlight some of the questions, the decisions that you're going to have to make and take you along through that journey. Once we know where we're going, how much we need and when we need it, we need to figure out how are you directing your savings. So if you're going to retire before 59 and a half, you need to ask yourself, how am I going to access those accounts? The other question we think people need to ask themselves is, am I in a higher tax bracket today, or am I in a lower tax bracket in retirement? That's going to help us make decisions as far as where you direct your savings. So many people in the room, by show of hands or not, do you have a 401k or some type of retirement plan through your employer? Yeah, most people nowadays. Years ago, we used to have pension plans. Now we have 401ks. So the 401ks, at least the traditional ones, the dollars you've put into that account have not been taxed yet. And all of the earnings and growth over the years have not been taxed either. It's only when you decide to retire and take the money out from a traditional 401k that you pay tax at ordinary income rates at that point in time. So you get to control when that money comes out. Some people might have a Roth IRA or a Roth individual retirement account. Roth IRAs, you've already paid the tax on the dollars that you put in, but all the earnings and growth, assuming you withdraw them after the age of 59 and a half and for a qualified reason, are tax-free. So how powerful is that savings account as far as it goes, making sure you have money over your lifetime? And then maybe by a show of hands again, does anybody have a health savings account? Okay. This is more hands than we would have seen 10 years ago. This is a really power saving vehicle for retirees because the dollars you put in, you do not pay tax on. You get an immediate deduction. And then assuming the earnings and growth are withdrawn for a qualified medical expense sometime throughout your lifetime, prior to 59 and a half, after, or way later in life, those distributions are tax-free. All the money you put in and the earnings and the growth. So as you can see, once we know where you're going, when you need the money and how much, you figure out where you're directing your savings, and that all helps us put the plan together to arrive at the destination. A little delay here. So have you ever gone to the airport and just not know where you're going? Has anybody just showed up and said, okay, Let's go somewhere. Yeah. Now ask yourself a different question. You show up to the airport, what type of aircraft am I going to get in? Most of us, let's say we're going to fly to Hawaii, are going to get in like a Boeing 737. The point I'm making, a Boeing 737 is kind of like owning a group of companies or stocks, a diversified portfolio that's going to get you quite a long way. You might have a couple of bumps along the way, but you're not going to have to refuel in Nebraska and then again in California to get to Hawaii, hopefully, right? The other aircraft you could get in is a MiG, a Russian MiG. Anybody seen the Top Gun movie before? Yeah. What does Goose do? You know, inverts the plane over the MiG. Right? So a MiG is going to get you there real fast. It's kind of like putting your money in maybe a couple different stocks, a couple different companies. Certainly could be a heck of a ride. But you're going to have to stop quite a few times along the way to refuel. Nobody ever thinks of the hot air balloon, though. Okay? And to us, the hot air balloon is like putting all your money in cash and bonds, right? With today's interest rates, you're barely earning a rate of return. And frankly, you're just going to kind of blow with whatever direction the wind is going. But that hot air balloon is probably not going to get you to Hawaii, right? Hawaii being the final destination, retirement. And I don't know if anybody caught in the news the other day, did anybody see that company SpaceX and what they did? The rocket. They put 4 non-astronauts into space for the first time, and they circumvented the Earth three times and then landed them safely. So in my mind, I'm probably not getting on the SpaceX rocket anytime soon, right? But you could equate that to like all the hot investment ideas that you see in the newspapers or in the media. They sound really flashy and fun, but I tell you what, there's a whole lot of risk in takeoff, and then you got to deal with the re-entry, right? Chances are you're going to blow up. The point being, not only is it important to decide where you put your money, what type of accounts, but how you invest it specifically based on your vision for the future. Which leads us to what we call the retirement equation. It is human nature to want to control our environment and our bodies. And as you can see here, there are things that we have total control over in our life, such as how much do we earn and how much do we save? Where do we deposit those savings? And how do we invest our money? Totally under our control. Then there's things that are somewhat under our control. Like, for example, how long am I going to work? And to a degree, how long am I going to live, depending on how you take care of your body? Right? And then there are things that are just absolutely out of our control, as much as we wish they were, is the market returns. And what we're talking about every day for the last couple months is tax policy and benefit changes by the government. So I want you to think back over the last 20 years. It's a pretty long time, 2 decades. During those 20 years, we've had 4 different presidents. We had 3 major changes to our tax policy and benefit packages. We had the worst terrorist attack on US soil. Throw in a global financial banking crisis and a real estate bust here. We even had, I won't name the country, but one tiny country in Asia that was threatening to shoot a nuclear ballistic missile at us for a couple years. And then top that with a global pandemic. That is a lot of stuff that is absolutely out of our control. So what's funny about this is those may be the concerns we see clients facing, certainly as they're leading up to retirement, but it's not even the most difficult thing we deal with sometimes. And that's switching from saving all your money to spending it. And I'm not talking about the stuff like keeping the lights on in your house, putting food on the table, clothes on your back, healthcare. I'm talking about the fun stuff, right? So you really do need to ask yourself as you're leading up or as you're transitioning into, how am I going to spend my money and how long is it going to last? So with that, Nancy's going to take us through the next part of it.
Thanks, Nick. So you made a decision. You're going to retire. Very exciting. This is what you've worked your whole life for. It leads you into a phase of transition. And with that transition, we hear a lot of our clients, they've got a lot of questions. What am I going to do with my retirement plan with my employer? When do I turn on Social Security? What am I going to do about health care? And how am I going to fund my day-to-day expenses in retirement? We see with our clients, then hopefully you only retire once. So these decisions are very, very important that you take into account all the options that you have and that those decisions are based on what your personal vision and retirement plan are and that they're going to fit within your personal vision and retirement plan. Like Nick referenced, we help people retire every day. We've helped thousands of families transition into retirement and get them on their way. So with that said, let's go ahead and see if we can't get some of these questions answered on a broad spectrum for you tonight. So we have this retirement plan. We've worked hard, we've saved, and once you are no longer actively employed with your employer, you do have some options. A couple of these are a little less traditional, but they're options nonetheless, so I will let you know what those are. The first is, and again, with your retirement plans, like Nick referenced, it could be a 401k, 403b. If some of you have worked for an employer for a number of years, there may even be a pension plan in place. One of the options that you have with those is you can take a lump sum distribution personally to yourself. You can be, oh, I'm gonna just go travel the world and buy a couple houses and all that kind of good stuff. But that does have some implications to it that you would want to be aware of. Certainly having that cash in your hands may feel good at the moment, but it is going to be a taxable event for you. The federal government requires a 20% distribution or tax withholding rather on those distributions. And if you're under 59 and a half, you're also going to have the IRS impose 10% premature distribution penalty. So that's pretty hefty tax withholding on dollars to have in your hands today. The other consideration is if you have those dollars sitting in cash, those dollars are not working for you and sustaining through the inflationary times that you're going to have while you're in retirement. So again, it's an option. A lot of times it may not make sense for clients, but certainly it's something that can be done. The other thing that you can do is leave the dollars within your existing 401k plan. Again, this is going to be on a plan-by-plan basis, but you can take the dollars, leave them there. One of the limitations that you're going to have potentially is that you're going to be having just the investments that you had on the platform when you were in the 401k. That's what you're going to have available to you when you retire as well. So the limited investment options is going to want to be a consideration. Also, depending on what those dollars are going to be used for, the accessibility of those dollars is going to be very important. And when you leave dollars within your retirement plan, or the 401k rather, a lot of times there are going to be some restrictions on how accessible those dollars are going to be for you. So it's going to be a consideration. Do I need an income stream? Am I going to need to get into that, get to those funds on a regular basis? And the last consideration is then that a lot of times there's going to be a fee involved with taking those distributions if it's left within the plan. So again, just some things to think about as you look at your options. Third option, if you have a pension plan, you have the ability to take that pension as a stream of income, and it would be paid on a monthly basis. You can take that fixed stream of income over your lifespan or also over the span, if you want to take a little bit of a reduced benefit, over the span of your spouse's life as well. But as I mentioned, it is a fixed income stream. So one of the things you want to consider is the same dollar that you get the day you retire is the dollar that you're going to get potentially 22, 23 years from now when you're still in retirement. Retirement averages about 20 to 25 years in length. So you're going to want to make sure that the income you have may have that flexibility to keep pace with inflation and the cost of living increases. The other thing is it's a fixed income stream. Maybe you don't even need that fixed income stream at this point. So now you're taking dollars out and paying taxes on money that you maybe don't even need. So again, managing that tax liability is an important factor as well. And then last but not least, should you pass away, there's a possibility that you may pass away before you get the full amount of the pension benefit that you actually earned while you were employed. So just again, some things to think about. Lastly, certainly you can take the lump sum pension distribution and you can also take your 401k plan and move it into an individual retirement account or an IRA. This is not a taxable event. It is going to move from one qualified plan to another. So a lot of times with the IRAs, you do have a lot more investment flexibility, so the range of investments available to you will be greater. You also, a lot of times, depending on where you open that IRA, will likely have professional financial advisors that can help you navigate your way through some of the things that you need to think about in retirement. You also have a lot more flexibility on the distributions that you can take. So we have clients who, they maybe only need one-time distributions every now and again for a vacation or something that goes wrong with their house, so we send them the money. We have other clients who really want to replicate their income that they had coming in while they were employed, so we can send that to them as frequently or as infrequently as they want that to be sent. And again, that also gives you greater control over the taxes that you're going to be paying on those dollars. You're not having to take them out and pay taxes unnecessarily. And then last but not least, you do have the ability to name beneficiaries or heirs that would inherit those dollars once you do pass away. So there's a legacy feature involved with the IRA. Now that being said, when you do get a lot of that flexibility and those benefits, there is usually going to be a little bit of a higher cost involved with that. We worked with some clients a couple years ago. They were both 60. They both worked for the same company here locally, and they each had a pension, and they each had a 401k. And they're like, how are we going to, do we need to turn on the pension income now because we're not really going to be eligible for Social Security yet? What should we do with our 401k? How are we going to work with healthcare? So we have tools available to us that we help them navigate through those choices that they had. And ultimately, through using those tools, we came to a conclusion that they're going to roll those funds as a lump sum into an IRA with Raymond James. So at that point, our team steps in. They help open the accounts appropriate for the individual retirement accounts. We had our team help with the paperwork that was needed in order to get the pension rolled over as a lump sum. They helped with the phone calls that were needed to get those 401ks rolled into the IRA. Once everything was consolidated, we set up that stream of income that they said they wanted, and they were on their way happy into retirement. So again, just an example. So we know we can get income from your retirement plans once you retire. When do I turn on Social Security? So if you've worked for an employer and you've paid into Social Security taxes and have earned 40 quarters worth of eligibility, you will have the ability to take Social Security retirement benefits when you do retire. When can I access Social Security? So I'm going to start here. This is a chart, and this is also in your handout. So if you're having difficulty referencing this, you can look at it along with me or when you get home. So I'm going to start by explaining to you what full retirement age is, and that's going to be this little bar right here in the middle. So full retirement age is when you can access 100% of the Social Security benefits that you are eligible for based on what you've paid in with your employer. Okay? You can see there's a range of ages that becomes applicable. So if you were born 1954 or earlier, your full retirement age is going to be 66. And then from 1954 to 1960, they notch that up by a couple months each year until you eventually get to 1960. If you're born 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67, okay? So if you claim during your full retirement age, you're gonna get 100% of that benefit. 62 is the earliest age that you can go ahead and collect that benefit. If you collect anywhere from full retirement age or from 62 up to full retirement age rather, that's considered early collection of your Social Security benefit. And you can see here, it does decrease just a little bit each year as you move forward, and it averages about 6% per year. So if you're willing to take a little bit of a less benefit by collecting early, again, that's just one of the considerations you want to keep in mind. One of the other things you want to keep in mind is if you retire and you think you want to be employed after your retirement, either you feel like you want to get out of the house and do something you enjoy, there is going to be an income restriction on how much earned income, and that's money that you actually earn through employment, not distributions from your retirement accounts, but earned income. So there's a restriction on earned income up to about, right now, $18,900. So if you earn over that, Social Security is going to start reducing your monthly benefit for every dollar that you go over that. So again, another consideration. Once you get to your full retirement age, you can take your full benefit and there's no income restrictions. You can go and work and do your thing and enjoy whatever it is that you want to do. Then if you go past full retirement age to age 70, you can see the benefit starts to increase a little bit each year, and with 70 being the maximum amount of that benefit. So whether you collected at 70, 72, 74, that dollar amount is not going to change at all, okay? So, and that increase is about 8% per year. So you're thinking, well, you know, if I wait, I'm going to get more, and more is better, right? Well, in the case of Social Security, it is something that you paid into, so it's a benefit that you're qualified for. It does not have, though, a legacy feature. So if you don't start collecting Social Security, that benefit does not necessarily pay, your dollars that you would have collected do not pass on to your beneficiaries. So it's a consideration right there. The other thing that is a consideration is if you start your Social Security income, those are dollars that we maybe don't have to take out of your other retirement assets to supplement your income needs. And the important thing is that those retirement assets, your IRAs that you have or your Roth IRAs, those do have a legacy feature. So we're preserving those assets that then can be passed on to your heirs or your beneficiaries, okay? And we have a story here. We've got a client who's 84. He went ahead, turned on his benefit. He was like, I know it's going to be less. It's going to be 62, and he's been collecting Social Security at that lower rate ever since he, turned it on when he was 62, and he's 84 now. We asked him, did you ever regret that decision? Absolutely not. So again, everybody's circumstances are different. The nice thing is we also have tools available to us to monitor and kind of assess Social Security claiming strategies for each of you, just based on whatever your personal situation is and what you're trying to accomplish. And again, those are things that we can work through with each of you if you are interested. So we now know we've got income from, let's see if I can, okay. We've got income from Social Security and your retirement accounts. What about health insurance? It's a significant consideration for retirement. And a lot of times if you retire pre-65, it may even be an obstacle for you in order to be able to retire early. So if you don't have retirement health care benefits through your employer, you're going to need to access those benefits from somewhere else. One option is COBRA, which is an extension of your employer health care benefits. You pay those 100% of those premiums out of pocket, and that benefit is going to be available for 18 months. Beyond the 18 months, then you obviously have to come up with another health insurance to help you with your medical needs. The other option you have beyond COBRA is you can go into the healthcare marketplace and look at that healthcare marketplace and get insurance there. And it's expensive, and it does rise as you get older. You can see here with age 50, it's about $820 between the premium and your out-of-pocket expenses that you actually incur. And then you fast forward to age 64, you're looking at about $1,375 as far as what you're paying each month for health insurance. So that's expensive, but health insurance is a critical piece of your financial security, because if you imagine you don't have health insurance in place and now you have a health event, we now have to go into your retirement assets and your personal financial assets in order to cover those expenses. So again, it is a very important piece of your plan. Let's fast forward to Medicare. And again, you can see here, it's a big difference. And once you reach age 65, those costs do go down. Of course, they increase with age. With Medicare, you have a lot of different types of, you've got Part A, which is the hospital, and then you can get add-ons in order to give you doctor visits, prescription drugs, whatever it is that you may need. But beyond that, really the consideration with retirement healthcare is there's a lot of moving parts. But you want to make sure you have the appropriate healthcare in place, because healthcare when you're in retirement as opposed to when you're actively employed is much different. You're going to want to have good coverage, accessibility to providers, low cost. I mean, admittedly, as you get older, that's when, maybe you start to have a few more medical issues. So you want to make sure you have the appropriate coverage in place. The nice thing is, as many options are as available for both pre-65 and also after Medicare, we have resources through Raymond James and also locally that can help our clients navigate those options and again, come up with a healthcare plan that's going to be appropriate for their specific retirement option. Okay? And last but not least, so we've got all these pieces, the income, some of the expenses, the healthcare piece. Now, how do we go ahead and fund our day-to-day expenses? So Nik referenced the journey. And retirement is like a journey. You need to know where your destination is, what's the vehicle that you're gonna take. Just like if I leave tomorrow to go from Ohio to California, I'm gonna need to know, okay, I'm going to California, am I taking my car? Am I taking an airplane? How do I wanna get there? It's just as important with retirement. So you need to determine, when am I gonna retire? And what's the vehicle that I'm gonna use to get there? So what are your retirement assets? So these are all things that you wanna have in mind. Once we kind of know the vehicle and where you're going, then we can start figuring out, well, what do we want to do when we get to that destination? And that's the fun stuff, right? How do I want to fill my day? And it's a legitimate question. A lot of our clients kind of have a hazy idea of what their retirement's going to look like. And when we ask them, what do you think you're going to fill your day with? Just like Nick said. And you have an idea, and that's, it's important to have some sense of what you want to do. What are your hobbies that you're going to pursue? Do you want to travel? Do you want to get an RV? Do you want to get a second home? And who are you going to spend the time with? And is your spouse on the same page as you? So these are important things that you need to keep in mind when you're coming up with, what do I want to do once I do get into retirement? So then once we have that sense of what your retirement is, we can start to kind of monetize that for you. And again, as you notice, we're coming up with the goals first. We talk about our personal vision plan. The goals are what's going to drive what we're doing for you and making sure that we can accomplish that first and foremost. So we're going to take your goals, we're going to put a dollar figure associated with that, and keeping in mind that you're going to have non-discretionary expenses such as your groceries, utilities, car payments, mortgages, health insurance. You're going to have discretionary expenses if you want to travel and that kind of thing. You always want to make sure you're accounting for things that may break when you're in retirement, your appliances that need to be replaced, your cars that need to be replaced. And then, last but not least, inflation and taxes, which are impactful on your costs of retirement. And then once we have how much it's going to cost, we can start to align what your retirement goals are and what's your retirement journey with the financial resources that we're going to need to get you there. And we have software, again, and tools available to us that we work with our clients on a very frequent daily basis, if not daily basis, to help them figure out, okay, is my retirement a reality? Am I going to be able to take this journey and have success? And even if we get to retirement, are we going to be able to take into account some of maybe the roadblocks that we may have to encounter? A long-term care event, the market going down, things of that nature. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Raj. We've gotten you transitioned into retirement. He's going to help you figure out, once you're there, how does that go?
So how's it feel? I have 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, so I have no idea how retirement feels. So anyone here retired? Because I want to live vicariously through you. Bob, how's it feel?
Great.
Can you describe it? Is there a phrase? Are there any words?
Very relaxing. Don't talk on the phone much anymore.
Okay. All right, I like that. Anyone else want to share a phrase, how they would describe retirement? There was a guy I used to work with. He thought he was really cool. He came in right after he retired. He was in shorts and like a button up, and he's just cruising through the office. I'm like, hey Andy, how's the retirement? And he goes, dude, every day's Saturday. It's awesome. And so I'm like, all right, I like that. So I stole that line. So if you ever meet with me, you'll hear that a lot. So what I want to do now is, Nick helped you think about, when you're working, what retirement looks like, what kind of accounts to fund, and how much money you needed to save. Nancy got you over the hump, so you're retired now. You have your account set up, you chose your Social Security pension. So let's talk about what retirement feels like. There's a lot of questions, concerns people will have, and there's uncertainty related to markets. So that's what we wanted to highlight first is, what are the most common concerns that people will have in retirement? Any guesses what we hear a lot about? Running out of money? Okay. What else? Inflation? Yeah. Market downturn, right? So no one asks about the market ever. They're cool. But that's the reality. The market ups and downs, the day-to-day noise that we hear in the news and the media, it affects things. And when you're working and you go 30 to 40 years with one mindset of accumulation, raising your family, putting everybody first, like that, you snap a finger and you're now in the distribution phase of life. So the uncertainty is real, right? If the market goes down, if, COVID happens or the debt ceiling doesn't pass, right? The market goes down and it doesn't feel good. And, when you're 30 years old and a 10% loss on your 401k feels a lot different than when you're 60 years old and have $1 million that you've saved your whole life. At 10% can give you some sticker shock, right? So remember, the volatility works both ways when the markets go up, when you have money. So if you work with us right now, a lot of your advisors may have walked you through this. So I think visual representations, they help because you can kind of just visualize, and there's a reason why teachers always stood at a board and taught us when we were kids. But this chart is in your booklets as well, if you can't see. But I think it does a really nice job of just stating what reality is, that the markets go down, and they will go down. And if you look over the last 41 years, every single year, the market has had a downturn. Okay, it's inevitable. And anyone that says that they can avoid it or they have these strategies of how you can limit the upside, you have to embrace and understand that if you have the proper plan, you could withstand these downturns. And why you want to withstand these downturns is 31 out of 41 years, the markets go up. Okay, so over this time period, the average downturn has been 14%, right? So if you're invested in the stock market, you have $1 million, it goes down to $860,000. It doesn't feel good. But do you have a plan in place to do the things that you want to do? Because Nik said, we're only retiring once, we're not going back to work. But if you stay invested and stick to the plan, the market has grown by 12% on average over that same period of time. So why? It's not why the market goes down. Why does the market go up? The simple answer is consumption, okay? People are out there buying goods and services. A market at its simplest form is a place for people to buy a good or a service, right? As it's expanded to the modern age that we live in today, it represents these companies and these stocks, but there's more people in the world buying more stuff. That is what's led to the market growth through your progression from when you started working to retirement, and will lead from your children today to when they retire. So the Brookings Institute, an economic institute, they predict that the global middle class will grow by 2 billion people over the next 10 years, right? So that's just more people buying more stuff. It could be diapers, or it could be cell phones or gasoline, but it's just more people consuming more goods and services. Now, these are the top 10 companies in the Dow. This is through January of this year. And, I think of my dad. So I put him back to work. He watches my kids 2 days a week. So, I don't know if it's by his choice, but no, they enjoy it. But I think of his day, right? So maybe he wakes up in the morning, he comes down for his coffee. He and my mom probably look at their iPhone to see if my wife or I have sent any videos of our kids, right? Then he goes to the computer room. We call it the computer room still at home. And he pulls up his computer, goes onto Windows that's owned by Microsoft, and goes onto his Chase checking account, and maybe pays his Visa bill. So you're getting the hint here, right? Whether the market's up, down, or sideways, we're consuming these products at a pretty high level. There's periods of time where we consume them more so, and there's periods of time where we consume less of them. But at the same time, we're not just stopping that consumption. So the reason why we believe that over longer periods of time the market will grow up is simply that reason, consumption. So what's the plan, and how do we prepare people? We understand that when you retire, we got to replicate that paycheck. You have your pension, you have your Social Security, that hits on the first of the month. So the portfolio has to provide some income stream to supplement your needs because, again, we're not going back to work. So this is customized. Every person is different. And I think one of the big misconceptions, and it's a hard thing in the world we live in today, we have access to so much information, so much data, right? So it says, I need to have my age in bonds, or I need $1 million, right? That's a rule of thumb. What do you need specifically to do the things that you want to do? So when you're thinking about this and setting up the investment plan, the distribution strategy is vital. It's very important. So this is just a really broad example, right? Like say a client has $1 million and they need $40,000 per year on top of their pension and Social Security, whatever it may be, to do the things that they want to do. So the setup of this portfolio is we're going to put $300,000 and we're going to put 7.5 years of the client's income needs in safer types of investments, right? They're not going to fluctuate up and down with the market. They're going to protect and create that buffer to the portfolio. So year one of retirement happens, right? And you wipe out this 40,000. Let's say the market's down 10%, right? The $700,000 is down to 630. So I think this is why Nick and Nancy have me doing this part of the presentation, because I'm the newest here relative to them. And so that's when you call me and yell at me, like, why the heck is the market down, right? Like, you know, you ruined my retirement, blah, blah, blah. And I would say, no, you're fine, because we have this income need set aside. So we don't want to sell these investments when they're down. We want to give them time to regroup, because over time they will. And so all we do is we call it filling these buckets, right? So we'll move $40,000 from the short duration fixed income to cash and move it up. And we have 7.5 years worth of income. So your profile might be different than your neighbors. You may say, you know what, Raj, I'm really conservative. I want 10 years worth of income. I just want the safety net. I don't care about all the upside of the market. Perfect, right? That's a customized investment allocation based on your risk profile and what makes you comfortable. Other people may say, you know what, I know it comes back. I'm cool having 3 or 4 years. So the portfolio is designed for your needs and your comfort level, but inevitably, vice versa happens. Say the market goes up 10%. Well, we maintain all of this fixed income, then we're going to use profits to fund next year's income needs. So the investment management and portfolio decisions related to the distribution strategy are very important. You don't want to make emotional-based decisions. You just want to make sure that you have a plan in place that can accommodate the things that you want to do. Again, a lot jumps out at you. It looks like a quilt, I know. But it's again, a really good graphic, and I'll kind of walk you through it. I think in any industry, I think it takes a person to be good at their job if they can recognize that there's people out there that are smarter than them, right? And so the way that the philosophy we embrace at Carver Financial, it's nothing new. It's won a Nobel Prize. If you look at any institution, foundation, endowment, they're managing their portfolios the same way that we want to manage our client portfolios. So think of Cleveland Clinic, right? People are going to donate money to them. They, provide great value to our community. The donations go in. This foundation is managed into perpetuity, right? There's no end date. Cleveland Clinic's never going to end. So they want to grow this money at a rate 6%, 7%. And they're going to take distributions of 4 to 5% each year for different initiatives. They're going to build a new hospital next door here. So that philosophy, that concept, it's already in place. We just want to replicate it because it works. Now, it's not the MiG. It's not going to go to the moon, right? But at the same time, it's a slow, steady, I call it boring approach, but it works. So this here shows you it goes back 15 years, and each of these boxes in each of these columns represents a different area of the market that you'd be invested in. So, we have real estate and large cap stocks, bonds, cash, international. What I want you to focus on is this white box here. So what that shows is a diversified blended portfolio. 65% in the stock market related investments, 35% in fixed income and cash, okay? So it's never the best performing area of the market. We're not trying to be the best performing area, but it's never the worst either, right? So when we look at it over a longer period of time, it's averaged, 6.7% per year, but the risk and volatility that portfolio took outside of cash and fixed income is the lowest amount. So we're not trying to make predictions on what's going to be the next best thing. It's having a blended strategy, but the main reason is, think of 2008. Everybody remembers, that big credit crisis and the housing bubble. Fixed income was up 6.2%. Cash was up 1.8, right? So that helps buffer this downturn. So this is where we draw from in years where the markets are down. Now, again, 7 out of 10 years the markets have been up, but in those years you see fixed income and cash is down here at the bottom. But again, 2018, fixed income, cash. So it's a disciplined approach. And it's that saying, you can't have your cake and eat it too. But we do think that this philosophy works, and it's a disciplined approach to making sure you can do the things you want to do. All right, next, so expenses. Retirement evolves, and expenses change. Your expenses are going to change over time. So we touched briefly on inflation. So does anybody know how inflation's calculated? What it means? Like, it's in the news every day. You turn on, it doesn't matter what you turn on, it's just inflation, inflation, inflation. Anybody have an understanding? Well, I'm a nerd, I'll tell you. So inflation, it takes a basket of goods and services, like we talked about, that stuff that we consume, and it says, okay, what's the price of all these goods today? And what was the price of these goods relative to a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? And how much has that increased or decreased, right? So we hear it all day today, like inflation's at all-time highs and it's up 100%. Well, no kidding, right? Like last year, no one was driving anywhere. Gas prices were at like $1.50. Now everyone's back to normal, and gas prices are at $3. That's a 100% increase. So lies lie in statistics. It's a saying and it's true. But the truth is, inflation is real, okay? And in the world we're living in today, with interest rates, you go to the bank, you can't get a CD for anything. They're not paying anything on checking and savings. The 10-year treasury, which is the risk-free rate, is at 1.4%, right? So normalized inflation is about 2%, a little over 2%. So you're not even beating inflation sitting in cash. So a lot of times people think retirement's the finish line. I'm here, I'm gonna move everything to safe investments, and that's where we wanna be, because I'm 60 years old, I'm 70 years old. I can't take a downturn in the market. I don't have time to recover, right? You do. And the truth is, when you look at fair valuation, especially in today's environment, stocks are still the place that you want to be. Now, it's a little bumpier ride, and if you're diversified properly, you can navigate through it, but sometimes it doesn't feel as good. But inflation's real because it's invisible. You don't see it. So Randy has for years, and it's a great analogy, he states, you probably paid more, or you may have paid more for your last car than you did your first house, right? So if you just think of things that you've consumed and what that has cost over the last 20 years, 30 years, that's inflation. And so with money sitting in just really safe investments or cash, you're not keeping up with the next 30 years of the purchasing power that you need. Another highly inflationary item is healthcare, okay? And so long-term care insurance. Everyone's heard the horror story of their friend or family member. They went into a nursing home. It cost like $10,000 a month, and it drained all of their assets. So should I give all my money to my kids? Or should I move everything to a trust? What should we do, right? So again, it's a highly individualized, highly customized strategy. But long-term care it can be expensive. So the first thing I always want to ask people is, and it sometimes can be intrusive, but it's important to know, do you have history or family history of prolonged illness, right? That would require a high level of care. Things like dementia, Alzheimer's, ALS, right? So long-term care, there's different levels of care that you can have. Highly skilled care is 24/7, somebody's by your bed. They're doing or helping you do everything. That could cost $10,000, $50,000 a month, right? Now, if you have somebody come into your house, home health, and they make sure you're taking your meds and make you lunch, right? That's a lower level of care, but what do you need? What is in your family history? What's important to you? And so when we're walking through some of these scenarios, can you self-insure? Yeah. It's not a zero-sum game where all of a sudden you have this new $10,000 expense that you didn't have. Nancy walked through your pension, your Social Security, your managed distributions from the retirement. that's still coming in, okay? So maybe you have to bridge the differential. What would that be? Do you want to use insurance to do it? Do you want to self-fund and maybe draw off of your assets? Again, what your neighbor's doing may not be what's right for you. So you want to think about what's important to you and your family, and how do you want to prepare for some of those things. Taxes, right? Again, in our face. They're talking about it, and the tax dog is always out there. So luckily in Ohio, from an estate tax standpoint, there is none. There's a property that will go to the next generation, your children. The state of Ohio is not going to come in and tax it. At the federal level, today, the asset base, it's $11.7 million per person. So it's over $23 million for a husband and wife. Now that will reset back to, it's about 11 million total in 2025. But still, it's a large dollar amount. For most people, it doesn't apply. But policy changes all the time. And not that long ago, the estate tax was at $625,000, and the need for trusts and more detailed estate planning was prevalent. So that's something that you want to stay on top of and you want to think about. The tax that we see more today, and Nick brought it up, majority of people's wealth is now in their retirement accounts, right? Their 401ks. We used to have pensions in the 70s and 80s, and then the company said, this is a liability for us. We're going to put the liability on all of the employees. And so we'll match money, but everyone started putting money into their own plans. And so now everyone has these IRAs and 401ks. So you didn't pay tax on the money going in. You haven't paid tax on the growth yet. So at age 72, the IRS is going to say, we want some tax dollars. So you're going to have to take a required minimum distribution. At 72, it's 3.9%, so just about 4% of the account. So if you retire prior to that, what tax bracket are you in? Where is your income? Are you in the 12% bracket? Is there a way for you to do conversions where you're converting at lower tax rates than what's projected to be once you have to take those IRA distributions or RMDs at age 72? What's the tax planning? Bigger, and this is a new law that came into place about 2 years ago, is when the IRAs go to the next generation, the kids. So it used to be when the next generation of the kids are going to inherit this money, they have their lifetime to take required minimum distributions. It could be 30, 40 years, right? So again, IRS, how can we get some more money to pay off all the, a lot of the debt and things like that? Let's accelerate tax payments. So now you have to pay it, you have to distribute those IRAs in 10 years, okay? So I think most people in here, the goal has probably always been, and based on what I've talked to with clients, is we want to educate our kids. We want to have them and give them the ability to have a better life than what we did. So what that leads to is, kids that make a lot of money probably, and they have high income. So throw $1 million on them 10 years from now, 15 years from now, that they have to distribute. So that's an extra $100,000 of income. Does that jump them to a much higher tax bracket? Do you have goals of keeping as much money in the family? And does it make sense for mom and dad to do Roth IRA conversions at a lower rate than what the kids are going to pay in the future, right? Because otherwise, the IRS is getting the money. So someone's paying the tax. Should it be within the family or not? So again, I think a lot of these concepts that we talked about today, it's not a one-size-fits-all, and everyone's situation is different. The more you can plan for and think about the things that are important to you and what you need, you can detail out that plan. So with that, our goal has always been at Carver Financial to provide and give people advice and make people's lives better. And so we hope today's presentation has provided some insight for you guys and given you some stuff to think about. With that, I will close with, if you have questions as you transition into your retirement, our team is here to help provide clarity and make that transition as smooth as possible. So, thanks. And so one last thing before I jet on, any questions that anyone has specifically tonight, our team of advisors, we're all here. We're happy to sit down or chat with you quickly here, or set a time to discuss this in your specific situation in more detail. But, one thing, the Carter Medley Foundation, it hits at home with our team. So Carter Medley was the grandson of one of our clients, and at 13 months, he was diagnosed with leukemia. And he fought for the next year and a half and was at a lot of different hospitals throughout Ohio. So I was talking to Jason. Jason is Carter's dad. And he said, what we're doing is no different than what people did for us, right? And it's just, we want to provide care, and we want to be able to help these kids and these families that are going through probably the most difficult period of their life. And so with that, the Carter Medley Foundation, what their goal is to provide, things that help take kids' minds off the stuff that's really happening, the bad stuff of their treatments. And one of the things that they just did is they got Xboxes and took them into the hospital rooms at the Cleveland Clinic. So it's a local organization. They're helping local kids here. So it could be for the caregivers, it could be for the parents, it could be for the children. But they've partnered with the Cleveland Foundation to help expand their reach. But it's a very good organization. We all know, no child deserves to be in that situation. And anything that you guys as clients and friends of Carver Financial that you can do to help support, we will match dollar for dollar up to $4,000 on those donations. So please consider, if you found the information that we provided valuable, we would really appreciate sharing and providing for them. So thank you.